Welcome to another episode of EyeConversations.
When was, I should say, when you realized that optical was the journey you wanted to pursue?
I had to start freelancing, and through freelancing, I went back to people I knew at Fairchild and started writing about the home furnishings business, which was a huge growth area for them. And it was a headhunter who called me after that job who said there was an opening at a company that was looking for an editor of an eyewear newspaper. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Is there an issue or maybe a story of Vision Monday that really stands out in your mind?
We broke the news about Walmart coming into this category, and then Luxottica acquiring LensCrafters, the company that owned LensCrafters. It wasn't about just those big commercial moves. It was also because that had ripple effects to so many people. But to me, it was the entrepreneurs, it was the families that were building the industry.
Has there been a leader in this industry that you've interviewed that sticks out in your mind or maybe has surprised you?
I remember my first trip to Italy and my first trip to Agordo and being taken around the fabrication floor with Mr. Del Vecchio, who knew how every machine in that place worked.
You are a founding member of the OWA.
There were things that women did differently in the working world, and there were other pressures that women were facing being in the working world. Knowing when to speak up, asking for a seat at the table, being given a seat at the table, not being given a seat at the table. 10 other friends and me and Linda got together over potato chips and wine at somebody's hotel room at a Vision Expo West in Anaheim and said, could there be an association to help women in the industry?
How are you spending your time in this new chapter of your life?
Oh, well, listen, I mean, it wasn't easy.
If Marge Axelrad decides to write a tell-all book on this industry, I was like, we are all going to be in trouble.
That's very true.
Welcome to another episode of EyeConversations. I am really excited and honored to have my next guest. This next guest has dedicated decades of her life to this industry, amplifying all of our voices and positioning all of our products. My next guest is no other. Clap it up for the optical industry's grand dame, Marge Axelrad. Hey, Marge.
Hey, Terrence, how are you?
I'm doing great. You look great.
Thank you.
I didn't know we're going to be matching today.
Yes, I know. It looks like we planned.
I know, the blue and burgundy.
I know. It's working. It's working for us.
Absolutely. I started calling you the eyewear industry's grand dame. I was trying to explain to a friend of mine who you are, what you do, how long you've been doing it. And she says, oh, she's kind of like your Anna Wintour. I was like, yes.
Oh, wow. Well, that's pretty heady praise. Yeah. That's amazing.
Minus the whole Devil Wears Prada, nasty vibe. Yeah. You never.
Oh, the nasty vibe there. I thought it was the ultimate cool,
No, I'm saying minus the nasty vibe. You're definitely in the cool era. Era.
Well, thank you.
Good.
That's very much flattered.
Well, thank you again. We have so much to talk about. Yeah. Now, remind me, you're still associated with Vision Monday. What's your current title with Vision Monday?
No, well, I retired at the end of March 2024, and they were gracious enough to let me call myself editorial director emeritus. So that's what I am, editorial director emeritus. Vision Monday. And because I had been with Jobson for 34 years or something like that, 33. And I had done some work on 2020 in the early years, but then I became known for Vision Monday and news over time. So that was my primary role. But I'm retired, yeah. And I still, get involved in things that are important to me. But I have a whole new, way of life now.
Yeah. Editorial director emeritus.
Yeah.
That sounds fancy. Does that just
It
mean
sounds fancy.
you're the legend in the room? What does that mean?
It just means I think I'd been there a long time. I think I put my stamp on things for a while as the company and the industry was changing, and as what we did at Vision Monday evolved. It was a every 2 weeks print news publication that was only printed, and 2020 was a 12-time-a-year magazine that was only printed. But of course, things changed, and the internet showed up, and email showed up, and we started covering news more and more digitally. So we started Vmail and Vision Monday and Vmail, and covering all sectors of the market started to really take on a different kind of a role. So I was doing that most of the last part of my time there.
Oh, amazing.
With amazing people.
We're going to dig a little deeper into that later.
Okay.
But I want to, let's go ahead and get started because we have a lot to cover. I have a lot of questions. I'm very nosy and I want to know a lot about you.
I know you are. You are.
She said I am.
That's what I'm.
So I want you to just kind of rewind a bit. Let's rewind back, to the early years, back to little Marjorie, growing up before you were Marge Axelrad, Vision Monday. Tell me a little bit about who you were growing up and basically what led you into journalism.
Oh, so it was a strange path. It wasn't normal path, I don't think. I grew up in the suburbs of New York City. My parents were both raised here, born and raised here. My grandparents lived in Manhattan. And I grew up in the suburbs of New Jersey, right across the George Washington Bridge. And, I was a good student, the oldest daughter of two, and kind of a type A overachiever person. I enjoyed my childhood. It was a really diverse town. My parents were very open-minded people. I enjoyed school. I enjoyed my friends in school. And then when I went to college, I went to the University of Rochester in upstate New York.
So you're like New York through and through.
Kind of New York through. And I majored in comparative literature, which is as close as I got to writing, and psychology, because my goal was to go to law school. That's what I thought I was going to do. Everyone told me I had a lot of opinions and I wasn't afraid to talk, and they thought I could be a good lawyer. But when I took the law boards, which was a really long time ago, and they were only allowing like 10 women a year into each law school's class. And my board scores were okay, but they were not automatically going to get me in anywhere. So my dad, who was a salesman, suggested I work for a year and then I could always take the boards again. So through him, I made a connection with someone who got me a job interview. And I was so keen on not being labeled a secretary. I didn't even want to tell people how much I typed because I didn't have a professional degree, but I ended up, I liked the idea of media and I didn't know why. But I got an interview as an administrative assistant to two people who sold space on Menswear magazine, but the company was Fairchild Publications.
Oh, yeah.
And Fairchild, of course, is known for Women's Wear Daily, its Menswear magazine, Daily News Record, and a bunch of other B2B magazines at the time. And I didn't even know really what that meant. But I took the job. They offered me, it was my first interview. They wanted me to join them. And like 6 months later, I was really bored. I was typing up letters for people. I wasn't doing anything. I saw editors running around, but I didn't really understand what they did or what they were writing about. And literally one day, the assistant to the editor-in-chief ran out the door screaming and crying at lunch. And the editor, who was one of the first women promoted to an editor position in the company with the shoulder pads, and she was a very elegant woman, but very intimidating. We happened to go to lunch at the same time that day, and she gave me a double take in the elevator and said, "You work for," and she named the two people I work for, and she said, "Do you like your job?" And I said, "Well, not really."
Wow.
And she said, I didn't know what to say. And it was just us. And she said, "Well, as you can tell, I'm going to need an assistant. How'd you like to be my assistant?" So I said, "I don't know. I think maybe yes." She said, "Well, come see me after lunch." And so I became assistant to the editor-in-chief of Menswear magazine, which was a big publication at the time. Menswear was changing a lot. And I started to be her admin. And it put me in another place in the company. I was on the sales side before, and now I was really involved with creating the content and the fashion shoots, although I was carrying the clothes to the fashion shoots. I wasn't picking what went in the fashion shoots. But I learned a lot there. And I learned how stories were written and what they were writing about, and that's how I started. It was very unintentional. Yeah.
It's interesting that even though you saw her assistant running out crying, that didn't intimidate you.
That didn't frighten me because I didn't really understand what was happening, and I think I knew she wasn't happy, but I figured, well, maybe she was just demanding, you know?
Right.
I mean, not everybody is okay with that, and I don't know.
Yeah. What did you think that she saw in you that made her approach you in that elevator?
Oh, that's a good
Because
question.
she's shouldn't be observing. I'm guessing she's observing you for
No freaking idea. I have no idea because we had had very little interaction. I had interaction with some of the editors that were there. They had a structure to that, and people covered different sectors of the men's apparel market. Some of it was a little more glam than the other parts. The men's outerwear market wasn't as exciting as tailored clothing and this emerging fashion tone that was happening in the men's category. But I was learning about, how stories were written, who people were interviewing, what it took to put a layout together of a print magazine. I'm not quite sure what she saw in me. I really don't know
She
to
probably
this
saw
day.
the same thing that we all see in you now.
Maybe. I mean, as it turned out, she stayed another couple years. They named another editor-in-chief of that mag. And then that was the person who actually started to give me beats to write about.
Oh, okay.
And she actually asked me, would I be interested in writing? The first boss didn't ask me. She just gave me stuff to do.
A ladder.
Yeah.
It's a ladder.
But it's okay because I was finding my way and feeling my way through. So I would be writing a story, and then I would be carrying 2 huge garment bags worth of clothes to a shoot that the fashion editor was doing, and packing them all up and schlepping them back to the office. But it was learning, and it was
For
very
sure.
cool.
100%.
Yeah.
So then what was it that when was it, I should say, when you realized that optical was the journey you wanted to pursue?
Oh.
You've been in this industry for,
Yeah.
3 decades
The
plus.
thing that happened for me was before optical. People don't believe I had a life before optical, but I did. I stayed at the men's apparel magazine at Fairchild for 6 years, and then I left to go to something that was a new magazine covering shopping centers and retail, and I wanted to break out of just writing about one segment of business. So I took this job, not knowing the company, and about a year later, they went out of business. So I had to start freelancing, and through freelancing, I went back to people I knew at Fairchild and started writing about the home furnishings business, which was a huge growth area for them. And I started freelancing there and did really well. In fact, got hired as a senior editor and then promoted to editor of a magazine in the linen and domestics and decorative fabrics industry.
You.
I know. And it was a headhunter who called me after that job who said there was an opening at a company that was looking for an editor of an eyewear newspaper. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I said, I know nothing about that. And she said, that's okay. They know your experience. They know you've worked in news and that you cover business news. They know you worked at Fairchild and they would like to talk to you. So I met the owners of the company, Jobson at the time, the Amatos, Bob Amato Sr. and his son, Bob S. Amato, and Bill Scott, who was there at the time. And they had started Vision Monday as a show daily for the first Vision Expos, like almost a year earlier. And it was called 2020's Vision Monday. And it was a print thing that came out for the show. And then eventually they wanted to turn it into a regular news coverage print publication because Bob Amato rightly thought that the industry was transforming this was late 80s. And I had a lot of experience, but I didn't know anything about the sector at all. But I had covered a few, so he just trusted me when he asked me about the magazine and what would I do, and I suggested organizing it differently and developing beats that people would cover. That was something that they hadn't really tried. I don't know. It just worked out, and I liked him. He reminded me of my dad, I think.
Oh, nice.
So I took a chance.
Isn't it interesting how we all have our story, how we fell into this industry?
Yeah, fell in.
We never leave. It's like, we all come from this past, you and myself from me from the medical side,
Yeah.
with home furnishing journalism. And then all of a sudden optical finds us.
I know.
And then we're lifers after that.
Well, it's true. It's funny because for me, even being a business journalist was not part of the idea for me. But I learned about that through other sectors, and everything I learned, even with super demanding bosses, I found was really educating me, how to walk into a meeting, how to work a room at a business cocktail party, how to talk to people, how to make sure people felt comfortable to tell me stuff, but also felt comfortable that I wasn't going to blow up and burn them later, because you're trying to develop relationships with people. In order to do a good job, you want to not only do a good story, but you want to help the readers, which is the whole idea, make better business decisions based on what they read. And that was just a very simple mandate that we had, and it was cool. But it is like falling into something and discovering things.
It takes a skill, though, to do that.
Yeah,
Able
and
to
a
have
different.
that way that people can trust you with this information. And
I had really been coached about that before I came, so that when I came to Jobson and came to the eyewear business and didn't know anyone, I was able to use those lessons to kind of find my way through, because I gravitated to the frame and eyewear and sunwear people. They were the closest to the apparel and design people that I had known. And then I gravitated to retailers and cool independents, and big chains didn't intimidate me. But it was the medical side, it was the optometry side that I had to really understand better and learn better. I offended a doctor once at one of the first meetings I went to when I asked this doctor at an optometry meeting how he marketed his practice. And he was so offended that I felt embarrassed.
What year is this now?
1988, 9, something like that.
That would not be an offensive question today at all.
Well, I am a doctor. I don't market anything. It was kind of a
And now we have
end the
social media,
conversation.
optometrist influencers. Now, fast forward to today.
Yeah, thankfully. I mean, because it worked out better. But I think it's really more always I approached it, and so I had an incredible team of people that I work with over the years, editors and salespeople who understood accounts, but editors who were charged with, you cover Andy Karp, you cover lenses and technologies, you know so much about this. We had 2 or 3 incredible retail editors who had experience in other sectors, but optical was growing so fast and things were changing, and people were opening commercial optical chains, and their businesses were growing like 20% a year. It was unbelievable. So it was a time of a lot of boom in the 80s and 90s. And we just had people who understood the dynamics of those sectors. And then we tried to talk about it together and figure out how it all fit together. And so I think that's what helped.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to move on to some career reflections. I know you have probably a lot of reflections in your career, but is there an issue or maybe a story of Vision Monday that really stands out in your minds? Maybe you say to yourself, this was the one story that, I know it's hard, 30 plus years of, taking down Vision
I
Monday.
thought about that. If I were to be asked, I don't have one. I remember different junctures and different points in time. When Vision Monday was in the news part of the business and we were talking about expansion, this wasn't a story I did, but we broke the news about Walmart coming into this category. Again, my relationships too were, and then we, of course, broke the news about Luxottica acquiring LensCrafters, the company that owned LensCrafters. But it wasn't about just those big commercial moves. It was also because that had ripple effects to so many people. But to me, it was the entrepreneurs, it was the families that were building the industry. And the industry meant all the sectors. Yeah. There were families of optometrists. There were practices that had, continuity of ownership, and they were legendary in the towns in which they operated. There were frame companies that were led by incredible design sensibilities, or just entrepreneurs who were really bold and self-made, who were trying to change the way things were done and grow their business. There was so much change going on, and I think I just related to that. And then I guess another milestone would be when Vision Monday first started to create its Vision Monday summits, the leadership summits. We originally saw that, and I think those started back when we wanted the industry. It was so segmented. We thought it would be constructive for the industry to sort of know each other better.
Sure.
So we were trying to get leaders in the industry to talk about their sectors to the decision makers at large. And then over time, especially with the advent of the iPhone and digital and the internet, we started to recognize that the trends of change were coming to the business. So we made the Vision Monday Summit be something that was a little bit more future-oriented. What are the trends coming at you that you need to know about? How are these trends going to upend or change the way you think about what you do? And I loved that as a part of my job, but I think that was also a big, like a watershed moment for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think about you, Marge, you are an amazing listener. And even to what you just said earlier, I've been on the corporate side of this industry, and I've been as an independent entrepreneur, within this industry. And you are excited about developments that happen on the larger scale in this industry. And you are excited when I launch Icon's agency, for example.
Yeah.
And it's the same level of enthusiasm. Yeah. So.
Well, I think it's really important. And I think I've always, I think it's true culturally too, when you travel and you realize that there's so many different people and taste levels and mindsets and interests that all converge into something that's really unique and has its own character. I always had a problem when people tried to generalize about the industry. So, small guys would complain about big guys, but big guys would say small guys haven't earned, their way towards scaling their business. But actually, I don't think that's really relevant or important. People are, maybe because I had covered other industries before, but I felt much more involved with the people building these companies and growing the business and wanting to change the way eye care was delivered, or the way eye care was designed, or what it looked like, or, appealing to different kinds of customers. And I think I became a little bit more part of that as the time went on, not as removed.
Wonderful. So, Marge, we all know Vision Monday. We know that there's so much work that goes into it. But are any behind the scenes moments of Vision Monday that you can tell us about, things that we as the readers of Vision Mondays, the listeners of Vision Monday don't know, but you as editor-in-chief can insight us on?
I don't know. I think I don't know how interesting the stories would be to somebody that wasn't behind the scenes. I think there were a couple of calamitous moments, like when we were trying to do one of the early Vision Expo East dailies, and there was an earthquake in
Get out of here. At Vision
in Southern California, not in Vegas, in Anaheim. And we were at the top of the building. We were literally looking at pages. And I remember that the chandeliers were shaking. I'm thinking, there's not a subway out here. So what's that? So that happened. But I mean, we had a lot of, we worked in different offices. This is when, of course, everyone went to an office on a regular basis. So when we were in very cramped offices on Lower Park Avenue in Manhattan for years, and we moved to Soho, we had beautiful 2 floors for the total Jobson Company. And all of us loved working in Soho. And down there, even though the offices were really wonderful, I think what I remember is just the camaraderie in the company changed, so that, we could enjoy the neighborhood and go out for drinks after work, or, go somewhere special for lunch and really enjoy being downtown in Manhattan. But I think a lot of the way we went about things was trying to make it so that it really wasn't about us. It was really more about readers and what they were doing and what they were going through, and what companies were doing to try to grow their businesses to serve those eye care professionals or retailers. So
I have a specific question.
okay.
Something I always wanted to know. What makes a story put into Vision Monday, our e-blast we get every day, versus a breaking news story? Is there a lot that goes into that? What determines what's breaking news?
Wow. Well, I mean, over time it changed because the capability of doing breaking news changed based on the way our website was structured and the way VMail was structured. When we first issued VMail, it was 1998, and it was an email that was one subject line and then a series of stories broken up by little ellipses. It was very, very different.
That's the ...
Yeah, with a ... And then, of course, because everyone was using email and waiting to read things later in print, there was a lot of interest, of course, for our audience and advertisers. So once ads started to work in VMail, we changed the design of email, and then over the years we changed the format of it so that it would always have something. Because people would say to me, I'm a frame company, let's say, and the frame guy would say, I don't understand all this lens and technology stuff that you put in there. What about our company's story? Or you'd have an optometrist say, well, do you always have to write about the chains expanding? Can't you write about other I mean, everyone has a point of view, and you can't please everyone all the time. So over time, we changed it. But when it came to breaking news, that was really more about the pace of how people were getting news was changing. And when I was the editorial director, my litmus test would be, first of all, can we confirm something? Because in all the years we were there, we did not run any rumor stories ever. And once in a while that we burned by that because we would miss breaking something. But we tried to make the breaking news things that were big moves, acquisitions, new executive senior changes, divestitures. We tried to make it be things that we knew were going to impact everyone in the market. And we didn't really want to wait until the next day to run something. But then it's also a matter of, do we know something's happening? Does someone trust us to tell us something is about to happen? Can we work out the timing with a company so that there's a lot of constituencies that are involved if somebody acquires a company. First of all, are they public? Then the chances of you breaking it before it's announced are nil. You would have to go with a rumor story, and we didn't want to do that.
Right.
However, even when they're two private companies, they still have to coordinate telling their employees, telling their own customers, so we had to do a lot of coordination, and we had to just honor our commitments and make sure people trusted that we wouldn't blow their news ahead of when we agreed to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Has there ever been, you've interviewed a lot of leaders in this industry on different levels.
Yeah.
And I know it's like picking your favorite child, right?
Can't pick a favorite.
But can you
Don't ask me.
just think about it. I mean,
Okay.
has there been a leader in this industry that you've interviewed that sticks out in your mind or maybe has surprised you?
Well, there's two different ones.
Okay.
People that stick out in my mind, and then others who surprise me. I mean, it's really hard to compare. I had the chance to meet Leonardo Del Vecchio several times, but I got to know Claudio Del Vecchio first, who was his son that was running Avant-Garde Optics back in the 80s and 90s. And they were trying to manage selling their products directly to ECPs and retailers here. So I met Claudio first, but then eventually I remember my first trip to Italy and my first trip to Agordo and being taken around the fabrication floor with Mr. Del Vecchio, who knew how every machine in that place worked.
Really?
He would go up to certain people who were just working on this temple or this frame front or this hinge, or he was putting his hand in the barrels where the frames were tumbled. And, he knew how many hours they were in there, and he would ask a guy, "Oh, did you add the XYZ?"
Oh, yeah, his finger on the pulse of everything.
I mean, he knew everything. And then, but at the same time, he was also very straightforward. He was not a elaborate pontificator. He was kind of mild-mannered in a way. And when we had lunch with him in his private executive dining room at the factory, we were told the workers, they get the same meal. And that always struck me. And then in that first factory, you can see the house where he raised Claudio and Claudio's sister. So, I mean, that was very compelling. And this was very early days, even for them. And then there are entrepreneurs that I met that just stuck with me. Al Berg, who was one of the triumvirate that ran Marchand, and had the business sensibility and was just very committed to growing the company and then growing it internationally, and became an incredibly close friend. But he tested us. He tested me a bunch of times to make sure he could trust us.
How
Us a little. I'm not going to tell her. I can't tell you that.
I'm trying to bare your soul to me.
No, I don't underbear anything else. There were just a lot of people. I mean, there's such a litany of people that I've met that are amazing. I mean, leaders like Reed Foss, who had a career
Yes.
in
Love Reed.
in the U.S. and then in the U.K. and then outside the business and came back to the business and took over a company that really needed to be overhauled, and somebody who's committed to eye care delivery around the world for people who don't have access to it. I mean, that's an incredible person. Or Sue Downs, who I met when she was managing other people's practices.
And now look.
And now look at what she's built. I mean, she's among the most impressive female leaders in business today. But then there are designers. There's, Salima Salon. There's Gay Girardi.
We just had her on a podcast.
I know.
Yeah, she was great.
Alan Mickley. Larry Sand, Larry Light, and Doré Chowderow, who ran the original Oliver Peoples, Patty Pereira, and Bill Barton. I mean, these are people who were passionate and are passionate about what they did, creating collections that defined independent and high-end eyewear. So that was different,
Yes.
you know.
Yes, absolutely. I interviewed Ed and Daniela Biner a few weeks
Another great example.
Amazing. And they actually almost verbatim the same list that you just said.
Is that
They
right?
said the same thing.
Oh, that's
Almost verbatim.
oh, good.
But yeah, these are people I always say they
And Ed was super gracious to me. I mean, he ran stores in Florida and was always curious, wanted to learn. And there's a litany of people that I've had the good fortune to meet. I mean, I really can't name them all.
Well,
Yeah.
we're all honored to be
Yeah.
you as well, Marge. So, listen, I want to also shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
I want to touch heavily on the OWA, the Optical Women's Association.
Oh, sure.
You are a founding member of the OWA.
Mhm.
Can you just take us through what the OWA did, the
Sure.
early years of the OWA,
Yeah.
why it came into formation?
Yeah, and I'm still very close to the OWA, and I applaud every new thing that they're exploring doing, including going international now, which is super exciting. But when I had been in the home furnishings business, there was a famous PR woman in that business who took me under her wing. She was a little bit older than me, and she introduced me to something called the Home Fashions League, which was an association for women who were in that field, designers, company owners, retailers, buyers, PR type people. And when I got to the industry, I remember kind of keeping to myself, but noticing that there was no such group here. But I just didn't do anything about it in the first few years I was here. But I had the privilege of going to trade shows and going to travel abroad. And, I had the platform that allowed me to go into companies and meet different people. And I realized that everything was sort of so fragmented and so splintered, and people were separated, and not everybody had a chance to go to those shows and meet other people. And for women especially, maybe because of where I was in my career, I was trying to be a better manager and communicator internally, trying to be heard at meetings, realizing I talked a lot at meetings, which is not a good idea. But there were things that women did differently in the working world, and there were other pressures that women were facing being in the working world, knowing when to speak up, asking for a seat at the table, being given a seat at the table, not being given a seat at the table. And a lot of the women I was becoming friendly with would commiserate sometimes about what they were going through at their companies. And there was one woman who worked at an equipment company, Linda Little, and she was sharing with me how tough it was for her to communicate because she was the only director in a management team of like 50 people. She was the only woman in the room. And no women bosses, just her director level. And she said, do you think there's an opportunity? So I called a good friend of mine, Jean Scott, who passed away last year, unfortunately.
Sorry to hear.
But Jean was one of the first influencers, I believe, in our industry. And she had been a huge buyer. And after she had been a big buyer for the precursor to National Vision, but she had bought for other optician groups around the country. She was doing product for Avant-Garde Optics, Luxottica at the time. Anyway, she had had a lot of experience. And she and 9 or 10 other friends, and me and Linda got together over potato chips and wine at somebody's hotel room at a Vision Expo West in Anaheim and said, could there be an association to help women in the industry network better, meet each other, understand what opportunities were out there for them? And we incorporated a not-for-profit, and it was unbelievable. But we just did it with our time and volunteer, and because women were really appreciative of finding ways of finding other women who were going through the same things they were. Or maybe they were curious. Maybe they were working in a marketing department of a company, but they really wanted to design frames. Or maybe they were designing frames and they really wanted to understand more about starting their own business. So it was a way for people to meet each other, and it was a way for the professional development of women, which was coming along in the general culture, to start to be recognized. So it's something that's very close to my heart and I'm very proud of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, completely.
OWA is one of the most influential associations.
Unbelievable. They have, I don't know the current number. I hope they won't kill me, but they have something like 65 or 70 corporate sponsors today. It's really very special.
Now that's abroad now. That's going to get nothing but
Well, the international expansion is really going to help them. But listen, we're in an environment today where fundamental assumptions about freedoms for people, whether they're women, whether they're people of color who are women, whether they're people of color who are not women. I mean, there's a lot of things that we're all facing today. But this is the nature of our country, consumers, business in general, the way technology is impacting business. I mean, it's never going to stop being an issue.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you that. Do you see, I mean, this has been quite a bit since the OWA started. Have you seen that an impact or shift in our industry where the perception of women have improved?
Yeah, I think so. And I think some of those early sponsors of OWA, the corporate sponsors, and men were in charge of those companies. Most every case, men were in charge of those companies, but they were allies. They were not necessarily like prior generations of men who were either, didn't really appreciate women's contributions as much as they could. So those first men were allies, and they're still allies of the organizations. And I think that's true in any kind of collaboration or partnership. We're going to have to see more collaboration going forward. And I think even though in the U.S. there's a recognition of women's contributions that has changed and continued to change, in Europe, in some countries and in some sectors, they still have a long way to go. They're like America was 25, 35 years ago. And I still have to remind people there is no official equal rights amendment in our country. It's something that you have to kind of chip away at and fight for. And women are proving it every day. And
Absolutely.
I think they're making incredible contributions.
Well, Marge, I can't end this podcast without getting a check on Marge Axelrad today. So a year and a half ago, you officially retired for your position. The industry still has not accepted that yet. We still take you in to our industry.
Oh.
How are you spending your time in this new chapter of your life?
Oh, well, listen, I mean, it wasn't easy. I mean, I had been thinking of it for a while because I felt the pressure of the increasing pressure of the work and the workload. And I think I was just reaching an age, or had passed reaching an age, where I wanted to do some other things with my time and reconnect with friends and not just hit them up on 2 days before I was coming or going from somewhere, like real visits. And same thing with my family. So I needed to be announced that I was leaving, and I wanted the time to take to really leave and adjust. And it was very hard.
I can imagine.
Very hard. But at the same time, after about a year, I think I've recognized that the friendships that I made and the contacts and what I'd learned about this business is important to me. I mean, it's a part of who I am. And so I've tried to, I'm traveling more, I'm seeing more concerts, I'm seeing friends more, but I'm trying to spend time on things, on projects that are important to me. So hopefully helping the OWA a little bit, hopefully helping elevate the messaging about eye care. But I don't want to overcommit myself. I'm enjoying a new way of carving out my time. Listening to a bunch of podcasts too. It's interesting.
I told you that I thought by now you'd be someplace on a beach, with some pool guy bringing it.
I know.
I think I called him Philippe.
I'm working on the pool. I'm working on the pool guy. But I was at the beach just a couple of weeks ago.
I know, I heard. Having a nice little time, a little reunion.
Beach into my scenario.
Good for you. One last question. I always said, if Marge Axelrad decides to write a tell-all book on this industry, I was like, we are all going to be in trouble.
That's very true.
Because we've all entrusted our secrets because you're so easy to speak with and you're so helpful to us. So the question I will ask you is this. If you had to pick a title of a book, not about us, about yourself, your life,
Oh boy.
what would the title be?
Oh God, that's a hard.
It is one. It is a hard question. I learned to ask hard questions from someone I know.
Yeah. Well, that didn't work out for me. Let's see. Honestly, I'm really stumped. I don't know.
Well,
I mean, I just want to be. I was in the right place for myself and for a bunch of other people. I feel like I was in the right place at the right time at a period of huge transformation. And I'm so happy that I took the path that I did. And I was lucky enough to meet the special people that I have. And if, shine a light on a sector that's always under-communicated and not understood as well as it could be, and yet so important to people's lives. So I don't really have a title. I don't have a title for the book. I don't know.
how about being at the right place at the right time?
Okay.
Marge Axelrad.
I could deal with that.
We'll figure it out. We'll
Okay.
figure it out. We'll answer that question the next time you come back.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for having me.
No,
Mr.
thank
Bill.
you for being
It's a
here.
privilege to be.
It's an honor. It's an honor. I mean, you've amplified our voices for so long. You've told a lot of our stories. So I'm just honored that I was able to be here with you to tell a little bit of your story. There's much more of your story to tell. So hopefully, as EyeConversations progresses, you'll come back to us.
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of fascinating people
Absolutely. Well, we love Marge.
in our world. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
Hi, this is Marge Axelrad, and this is EyeConversations. If you like what you've heard, please like, subscribe, and share.